Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thanks for joining me with my solo HeroQuest campaign. We are in the midst of the Lair of the Orc Warlord. I am hoping that it is only going to take one more session to get this adventure completed. Then we can get into downtime, and we do have the tantalizing prospect that if we achieve with the pool of characters that we have one more completed adventure, we become champions of the Empire, and we get a nice reward of 500 gold pieces, which will become very useful in spending in that equipment shop. So that is our target. However, we are still in the midst of this debacle. We still have not found Ulag, that scoundrel that we have been looking for. Possibly we will achieve this objective today, and that is the aim of our characters. So we just had Morkar's turn, and he had taken one of his additional skull tokens. So he only needs one more, and he will be able to utilize the time rule that we can draw a card, and if it has a wandering monster on or a trap, it can be sprung on a character, or there is a treasure that we can take out of the pack. And I think this rule just adds a bit of jeopardy into the overall proceedings, and it's quite good fun to have something for the Morkar player to do when he doesn't have any monsters on the table. So we're going to kick off first with our elf character. He is the first in our marching order. He is now ensconced in a room to the top left of this area. So I think the strategy that we had decided on was to go through this door, which had not been opened, and explore the southern area of the dungeon. So let us see what the elf does. It's been fully explored, that room, so there's nothing more to do. So he doesn't really, maybe he's not too enthusiastic. He says, I really quite like, maybe I'm pondering the more esoteric side of adventuring, thinking about those novels I've been reading in my downtime. And I'm just easy with life. Yep, and no rush. There's that barbarian. Let him do all the heavy lifting. He can rush down that corridor ahead of me. We do have the wizard who is actually hidden behind my fireplace here. He'd been in this room. He still has quite a raft of spells that he can utilize. So we're going to have to start maybe going through some of those. And he does have a heal body too. So we're quite well equipped for any potential hostilities that we're going to have in this area of the dungeon. So let's see what the wizard does and see whether he can catch up. And we're all feeling a bit sluggish this morning. 1, 2, 3, and he just says, all right, yeah, oh, elf, yeah, maybe they're having a bit of a chat about the higher things in life. And that is taking their time. So let's go on to the action, the dynamic duo of the barbarian and the dwarf. And the barbarian says, let me at this door. I want to. And he really is very enthusiastic, as we see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Out of my way, dwarf. I have doors to bash. And the dwarf says, surely you want to use the protocols of our party. Are you going to be so crazy, barbarian? On a 1 or a 2, the barbarian just says, I don't care what you've got to say. I just want to bash this door down. But he says, okay, dwarf, I will wait for you to check for traps. I will just finish my turn here. What I will do is I will search this corridor for any traps. And the dwarf says, well, actually, that's quite a good idea, because I did try last time. Remember, I was mucking about with treasure. I don't think there are any traps in this corridor. He says, well, that is a good thing. And in fact, what I've seen that I've missed out is I need to put in one of these rubble markers. I've not placed my rubble markers on on the board. And this is what happens when you've got to do a kind of setup and put it down again. You start missing out things. So I had a rubble marker. According to my map, it should be here. Rubble marker here. And then we've got another rubble. I've got another rubble marker I've got to put in. Yes, I've got to put one here, which delineates that corridor. And of course, this rubble marker up here, which is up here. So, in fact, I've seen that. What I've done is I have actually misplaced my doorway. It should be here. I'll just move my little characters down, and hopefully you don't notice that. That's too much of a glaring mistake. Right, that's me place my little rubble markers. So, and that delineates the dungeon's size. Okay, so the barbarian is holding off. He's managed to control himself, his unbridled enthusiasm. So it's really down to the dwarf. So what's the dwarf going to do? He says, "Out of my way, barbarian! I will go through. Yes, I will do this." So he goes 1, 2, 3, and he opens the door 4 into here. So we have an open door for this. We'll just stick that in there. And on my little schematic, and we are faced with the prospect of two rather burly looking and quite aggressive looking orcs facing down our dwarf. And luckily I do have a special orc quip that we can do, and of course because we are blessed with 2, we can do 2 little orc quips that they can both throw at this dwarf as he enters the room. I'm going to say that what he's going to do is he's still got a bit of remaining movement. So what he does is he dodges to the side here and says, "Right, I'm going to take you on, but I don't want to take both." I'll leave that to that barbarian to do that. Surely that other orc will charge at him and not at me, even though I am a racial foe. So the orc that is facing him has a bit of a jaunty quip. And what's he going to say to this dwarf as he bursts his way through the room, into the room? He's probably going to say, "What are you doing in here, Master Dwarf?" "I'll carve my name on your hide," he says. Well, that's not very nice. What sort of greeting is that for the dwarf? And the other orc, as he stares down into the glaring eyes of the barbarian with the door now open, what's he going to say? And he says, "I'll carve your name on my hide again." The barbarian says, "Well, try another one. Come on. Something a bit more entertaining for me. Orc steel is stronger than your bones." Yes, I like that. The barbarian is completely au fait with that kind of talk. And he says, "Yes, a worthy opponent." And of course, we've got our little gambits that we can play that we accrued in our downtime, where we get a +1 defensive dice against these particular monsters because they are the wandering monsters in the dungeon. So let us not get carried away with the situation and all the quips. Let us do what we need to do with our dwarf, and he is going to attack the orc, and he has an attack of 2. He has no specific weapon apart from his battle axe, so he gets 2 dice that he's going to throw. So 2 shields, and that is a miss. So he goes, that wasn't very good. Maybe I just was a bit too enthusiastic and trying to check for traps in that door, and I should have used a bit more caution. However, I am where I am. Hopefully this barbarian will help me out. Now we come to the Morcar player turn, and the Morcar player says, "Well, I can't take any more skull tokens," excuse me, because I have 2 monsters in play on the board. So, but I do have, as I say, 2 monsters, so I am going to use them to the best of my ability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play monster 1, and this is going to be this orc here. And the orc, he can maybe have another little quip, and we can just do a monster quip in general. We'll do a monster instead of a specific orc one. And before he bashes the dwarf, he says, 6, silence your footsteps, your screams will soon echo here. So, yeah, let us see if his words match his actions, and I'll get my little card, and I think orcs attack with 3, they do. And unfortunately, our little dwarf, remember he had his helmet smashed, so he will defend with 3 because he usually defends with 2. He's going to get a bonus, which he will use at this time. But let's see how well the orc does with his attack. And he has 2 skulls the dwarf needs to deal with. So on the dwarf's card it says defend with 2, but we have +1 because of this this bonus that we gained in our downtime. So he will defend with 3, so he needs 2 shields at least to stop this damage. And he gets, oh wow, well done. So the dwarf must be doing some amazing footwork and a bit of parrying, and you know, maybe it's bashing off his armor. It's doing all sorts of things. The orc cannot get through, and maybe this dwarf, with this, he has accrued this during his downtime. He's learned a lot of defensive measures against orc steel, and he has applied it. So we'll just remove that, and that's been cashed in. We have the other, and I'm just going to say maybe he just decides to stay there. He's not going to move any further. And this orc has a choice. He can either charge towards the barbarian, and I think orcs, as they usually go against the strongest threat. But I will just use, say, a 1 to 4. He charges against the barbarian. Otherwise, he might decide just to try to take on the dwarf, which is probably a more unlikely because that's going to maybe open up a weaker flank. But let's say 1 to 4, he charges against the barbarian. So he does. He does what is probably the sensible thing to do, and he charges towards it. He says, right, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you, I'm going to stop you. And does he have a little bit of a quip as he does it? Fresh meat for the master's feast, yes. Barbarian says, yes, you certainly are a worthy opponent for me. Your quips match your, they match your steel. Let us see. So the orc, he attacks with 3 dice. And he gets 2 skulls. So the barbarian, now the barbarian is a bit like a tank for this, because he's got 2. He has a shield that he can use already, which gives 1 extra die in defense. He has defense with 2 anyhow, so he gets 2. So that's 3, and of course he can use this. So he will defend with 4. So he has 2 skulls that he has to negate. Hopefully will he be as successful as our dwarf in getting it. So he does with his two shields. So obviously all that downtime learning about from that mercenary about the orc's weakness in, you know, maybe they're just not very good at attacking in a certain way, and he's managed to work out that weakness. It has paid off. So they have both used their little benefits, but that has been well deployed for both characters. Okay, so that's the Morkar's player turn over. He can't do anything else. There's nothing else on the board for him. So we go back to the player characters, and we get the elf, and the elf says, "Hold on, you know, I'm maybe I have roused myself from my contemplation. I want to have some fun now." 5. He's still a bit lackadaisical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's still thinking, yeah, easy, the elf. And then the wizard, and the wizard is again, he's thinking, I'm not very enthusiastic as well. I'm just wandering down. And the barbarian is, for goodness sake, where are my comrades? Just when you need them, and we're in the middle of this debacle. I could really do with some support. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bash this orc on the top of the head, and see if he surmises my cunning attack, or he doesn't. So we got 1 skull. So I think an orc defends with 2. He does defense with 2. So let's see if the orc gets one shield. It does. It defends. So I think that's worth a quip. It's worth a quip from the orc. And he says, bah, I'll cleave you in two and keep the better half. Right, so at least the barbarian's quite invigorated by all this. He's thinking, right, this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah, I might be having a bit of a combat with him. Am I going to move at all? I think what I'll do is I'll just stay here because I don't want this guy running around, maybe attacking anybody else. I'm going to take full responsibility for him. Okay, so we have the next character that we're going to do is the dwarf, and the dwarf will attack with 2 against this orc. So he is hoping that he is a bit more successful than the barbarian was. He gets 1 skull, so the orc will defend with 2, and it fails. So it succumbs to the dwarf's heavy blow with his axe. He cleaves it in 2. And when we get the delightful prospect of the dwarf having a bit of exaltation, he grunts and grumbles. What does he say in this instance? And he says, just a bit of dirt, that one. Now, where's the treasure? Okay, well, you're going to have to wait. Just hold your horses, dwarf. We still have some work to do. There's this the minor detail of this rather aggressive orc in our midst. So we have completed another round of the player characters of the adventurer's turn. We reached the Morcar turn, and the Morcar player says, well, I have a monster on the board. I cannot take any of my skull tokens. However, I will still try to deploy this really quite effective orc and see whether he can do any damage. Is he going to potentially be distracted from this barbarian and maybe try to turn his attention to the dwarf? I'll say there is a small chance that he does that, maybe on a 6, on a d6. So he doesn't. So he decides, right, I'm going to vent my energy on this barbarian and see whether there is a chink in his armor. Maybe I can get through it. So he gets 1 skull, and the barbarian will defend with 3 because he has a shield. So the barbarian, oh right, so yes, so he is successful. The barbarian, who has got 8 body, will now go down to 7. So I'll just mark that off. This goes down to 7. So he goes, whoa, yeah, you got through my guard, even past my nice new shiny shield. Yeah, I was not expecting that. So that is quite a bit of a blow. The orc does have the option that he could move. However, what I think he's going to do is he thinks, well, my only chance is maybe just to try to fight these creatures off and see whether I am successful in that prospect. I doubt it. Right, so that is the Morcar player turnover. We are back to our characters, and our first character will be our elf. So I'll just get my dice ready for that. And the elf has been really quite slow in coming around. Is he going to speed up now? He does. He says, right, okay, I'm here, the cavalry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, he can't really get through. And he thinks, is there any spells I've got left that I could use? Well, I do have this spear. Well, I wonder if my spear would be able to jab him through the doorway side on. That is a prospect. Let's see what the spear says. And he thinks, well, I could actually use this spear here. The spear allows you to roll 2 combat die and attack. The spear may be used to attack diagonally. You may also throw the spear, but if you do so, you lose it. Well, this is an open door. So that classifies as a whole side of a square. And he is side on, and he's diagonal. So why not? I think we will use the spear. We'll actually use this as the elf's offensive weapon. And he says, okay, barbarian, I'm here to help. Look what I can do with this jacky spear. I can point it at this creature from this angle, and let's see if I can slay it with my sharp blow. I get 2, and the orc will defend with 1, and he's not expecting this. He thought, where's this come from? This, this elf, he's just popped out of nowhere, and he's got this weapon that can attack me from round corners, and he fails. So the spear that was maybe scoffed at by some of the other characters when we were getting out the weapon rack, because that was a treasure, has actually paid some dividends. So the orc is slain. The elf gets to do his make a witty remark, which is his kind of little bit of repartee that he can do. And he says, perhaps they'll rethink challenging us in their next life. Okay. And the barbarian goes, what? What does that actually mean? Do you know what you're talking about? But well done, elf. I think that was a very astute deployment of that weapon. Quite not really the super weapon, but still very effective. So we're back to the wizard, and the wizard comes around and says, right, okay, I can maybe help out if I get a decent roll. Well, I get a 9. That should get me into that room. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I get in. And he says, right, ordinarily, I would check for traps first, but there is always the chance that I will go against party protocol if I get a 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go against, the wizard's been a bit rebellious in this adventure, and he's got into a bit of trouble, and the dwarf is getting a bit grumpy about all this. Again, what is this wizard up to? So I think what we're going to do is he's going to say, right, I'll just search for treasure then, because that's what I will do. Oh, and what do I get? Oh, potion of healing. Enveloped in a bundle of rags, you find a small bottle of liquid. You recognize it as a healing potion. You may drink the potion at any time. It will restore 4 lost body points. The card is then discarded. Well, that is a good treasure to find. And I can't honestly remember, do we get to carry treasure cards forward? I'll have to have a quick look at the rules. I am not sure whether that is the case. I think we have to use them in the adventure. I think we can carry them forward. But that's going to give us quite a bit of healing capacity now that we are in the... and also I will get to put one of my blue markers to show that we have searched for a treasure, partially searched, and we just have to search for traps now. So that is the wizard, and that's been quite a successful turn for the wizard. He's got his potion of healing. We now move on to the barbarian. He says, whoa, yeah, maybe I could do with some of that. I've only had a bit of a scratch though. I can probably take it. However, I can see a prospect before me of a door, and surely dwarf, you've had time to search for traps on that. And he says, yes, if you really insist, barbarian, you can go and bash your way through. So he gets a 6. So the barbarian says, right, I'm going to do it. 1, 2, 3, and he kicks the door. We get an open door here. And what does this reveal on our master map? According to my map, I have I have another door, which is located here, and I have an actual cupboard, like a wardrobe, big wardrobe here. So the barbarian says, "Ooh, right, okay, well, at least it's an empty room. There's nothing in here, but there's this great big wardrobe. What I'm going to do is I've moved 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move another 3 into this room and stand here. And what I can do is I will search for, ordinarily I should really do what the party says, and that is search for traps first. But being a barbarian, I'm really quite keen on a treasure angle. However, I really have to follow this impulse check. So on a 1 or a 2, I will do what I want, which is search for treasure. But otherwise, yes, I have succumbed to my barbarian instincts. And what I do is I search for treasure. And the treasure in this is the cupboard which contains 30 gold coins and a potion of healing. Right, so we are really in, we've got another potion of healing. So I'll just make a little note. In fact, what I'll do is I'll get my little post-it note and just jot down for the barbarian so that I can stick it on his sheet. Potion of healing. And he gets 30 gold pieces. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll stick that on the barbarian so that we have a little ready reckoner of what he has been doing. Well, that was quite successful. He might be, there might be some traps lurking around that he hasn't looked for. He's throwing caution to the wind, as a barbarian would do, but it seems to have paid off in this respect. And the dwarf goes, that could have been in my coffer, if I'd just been a bit faster on the action. But it is my turn now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to catch up. And I'll roll 2d, and I get a 4. The first thing I'm going to do, I will do what the party says. I will check for traps in here. So that is fully checked. So what I do is I put one of my black tokens on. Black token goes on instead of that. So he searches for traps, then he moves 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And he just gets through into this room. He goes, oh, you're right, barbarian. There's absolutely nothing in here. However, that's an interesting looking cupboard. It seems like you've liberated it of its contents. That is a shame because I could have done with some of that cash. Maybe I could get access to something further down the line. There is the tantalizing prospect of that door to be opened. So we do get to the end of the player turn and the adventurer's turn. And we have reached Morcar's turn, and as I survey the board, he does not have any creatures on the board. So what we do is we basically take away all the skull tokens to date, and we invoke the rule. And the rule is that I draw one of these treasure cards, and if it is a treasure, it is discarded and taken out of the pile. If it is a wandering monster or a trap, it is inflicted on the character as we roll a dice. And if I get a 1 in the first turn, they will be on that character. If I get a 1 and that doesn't happen, it will go on to the next character, and it'll be a check of a 1 or a 2. So let us find out what is on this. So treasure hoard. Ooh, that would have been really, the dwarf would have been very happy with the treasure hoard. So I take this card, I take it, put it away, and what this is supposed to represent is the fact that the monsters in the dungeon have decided to basically move their treasures and remove them from different rooms and maybe spread them around the complex. They've taken evasive measures in a kind of abstract sort of sense. So we are back to our adventurers, and what we're going to do is we're going to have our wizard, our elf, and the elf is going to, he's at the back just now. He hasn't, apart from maybe that quite impressive spear jab, he hasn't really done very much. So he's wanting maybe just to get into the action, and he gets a 9. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and he stands in front of here, and he says, you want me just to open this and see what's going on, or as we stand, I've got 3 characters after me that can all do things. So I think that's what I will do. I will listen to it as I usually do. However, I have decided to take a bit of a gamble and get the open door scenario, and I will just get one of my open doors. I just realized I was talking away from camera, so you probably didn't. I was going to get one of my open doors and just checked my key for the map, and we have quite an interesting prospect in front of us. So we have the open door. There is a door over here, And facing us, quite a considerable amount of creatures that are facing us down. And the elf maybe balks slightly when he sees this. So we have an orc standing here, and we have an orc standing here. We have an orc standing here. And insult to injury, we have two of these rather large reptilian type creatures. We have a Fimir, who is standing beside this orc, and a Fimir that is slithering away at the back of this one. So quite a host that turn around. You know, are we going to be bombarded by some quips? Maybe I'll do one for each race, and that's probably enough. So as the elf opens the door, there is probably going to be a few quips. We'll have an orc quip first. In unison, the orcs say, 6, they say, "Stand still so I can split ya proper." So that is quite a stern little thing to say. And then the Fimirs say, and as a little group, "I'll bind your bones in swamp weed chains." Okay, right. So we are sufficiently shocked by these utterances. The elf maybe recoils slightly, and he says, "Right, I think I'm going to leave it to the professionals. You know, over to you guys. Who's next on the list?" And the wizard says, "Okay, well, I have now seen these creatures. I can use some of my spells on them. Surely I can. What I will do is I'll just move into, so I get into maybe a line of sight. Although, that is the trouble. Is there anything I can use that is not line of sight?" The heal body, the genie. The spell conjures up a genie who will do one of the following: open any door on the board, or attack anyone on the board. Ah, right, okay. So I could use that. Small tempest is creating. I think I've got to have line of sight on that. So, yeah, that one actually states any creature on the board. But I think the other ones are all line of sight. Yeah, courage, pass through rock skin. Okay, well, maybe he could even do rock skin on someone. Pass through rock. Tell you what, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to he is going to move first, and then what he's going to do is so he only moves very slightly, so he can't even do line of sight. So he moves to this door here. So he says, "Well, the only one, you know, elf, shout back, describe who's in the room, and I will triangulate this genie spell on them, and I will attack with 5 combat dice." And he says, "Well, there's this horrible Fimir right at the back. I would do it on him." And he says, "That is my target of this spell. I will utilize the spell. I will roll 5 dice. I don't have 5 dice, but I will roll 4, and then another one. And I think the way this works is I get only once 5 combat dice. I suppose I get a chance for each hit, each skull. Fimir will get a chance. So that's 3. I don't think the Fimir is going to have much of a chance. 4 skulls. So the Fimir is going to have to get the miraculous, almost miraculous result of 4 black shields. He doesn't. In fact, that's 4 skulls, which is quite the contrary. So this Fimir goes, "Whoa! Oh, a genie has taken me by surprise." I don't understand what's happened, but basically I am no more. And we get an interesting wizard's scholarly scoff, which we haven't really had before, or very rarely, because the wizard doesn't really inflict too much pain on people. So he gets to say, "Amateurs, did they truly think brute force would prevail against arcane might?" Well, that is true in this instance. Arcane might really was shown in spades. So they go, well, that really helped us, wizard. Well done. We really appreciate your contribution. We do still have 2 prime characters on the go that can do some pretty heavy damage. So we're going to do the Barbarian next. And the Barbarian says, right, let me at him. He gets a 7, so he moves through the elf 2, and he's going to go I think he's just going to get stuck in. He goes straight towards this Fimir. He said, right, I'm just going to go straight for the jugular. I'm going to go for the biggest, the toughest, the most horrible, the foulest smelling one on the board. That is you. So the Barbarian gets to attack with his 3 dice, because that is what he does. Yeah, he has 3 combat dice. So is he going to score a single swinging blow against the Fimir? He gets 1, and I think the Fimir defends with, yeah, it's really quite, it's got its very strong hide. So it just needs 1 black shield to defend. But it doesn't. All the Fimirs are getting skulls for everything. Is this a bit of a trend going on? The Fimirs have not been effective at all. It is slain. The Fimir goes down. Another fantastic skull for the Barbarian. He lets out a roar. The roar is the roar of the Barbarian. We get a 3. And a 3 is, my blade sings your funeral dirge. Yes, that is a mighty saying. The rest of the orcs are thinking, oh dear, maybe we thought we had plenty of odds on our side. However, this Barbarian, and where did that genie come from? Just out of nowhere. They must have some magical backup. This is not looking too great. So that is the Barbarian's turn. He has been quite successful in his inflicting. We move on to our last character that can play a part, and that is going to be the Dwarf. So we will roll 2. He gets 8. So the Dwarf goes through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to move here and say, right, come on, come and get me. I'm going to whack you from the side. So he's going to go against this orc that's got the black tunic. And he attacks with 2. So we've got 2. So 2 skulls. He said, take that. You're not going to survive this, orc. Oh, but he does. He does. He does 2. Yeah. He goes, whoa. So I think that's worthy of a orc quip, that, because that was really quite something. So let's see if the orc does something. And the orc says, bah, I'll cleave you in 2 and keep the better half. And the dwarf says, well, bravo. That really was very impressive. I thought I had you there, orc, but you bounced off your hide. Certainly the orcs seem to be standing up a lot better than any of the other monsters in this dungeon. These Fimirs have not been very effective or very impressive, but the orcs really are quite on point. So we are at the end of our turn. We've done all our combats, we've done all our movements, we've done all our magic. We move on to the Morcar player, and the Morcar player says, right, okay, well, I do have monsters on the table, however, and also I can deploy them quite effectively. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot this orc sideways, and he's going to attack the Barbarian with, he attacks with 3. So I will use my 3. And he misses completely. So that is not too good. We do have 2 orcs here. So they are probably going to stay with the dwarf. They see him as an ancestral enemy. So the one that has not been doing any attacks so far will do the red one, and he attacks the dwarf, and he gets 1. And the dwarf gets to defend with 2, so he needs 1 shield. He doesn't, so the dwarf is down by another point. Oh no, he's not. It was the barbarian that was down. So the dwarf goes down to 6. Okay. And then we have the other orc. That's going to do some damage, hopefully, for the Markar player. And he does 2 skulls, so it's not looking great for the dwarf. So the dwarf, 2 shields, yes. The dwarf says, yeah, I do not need a helmet. It just bounces off of this stuff. Come on, you can do this all day. So that is the end of the player turn, the Morcar player turn. I don't think the orcs want to do any kind of movement or reshuffling. I think they're okay and almost like pinning the characters into this position. They don't really see any other option. They've really just got to kind of slug it out. So we are back to the elf. And the elf says, right, okay, well, I can really get in on the action. I don't have to be... And because I've got this spear now, which is actually as effective as my sword, I might start using that in preference, because I can get them from angles that they can't get me, which is quite a revelation. That's quite an interesting thing. So that might be quite good for me to do. And I think that's what I will do. I think I will just, I will move here. And what I can do is I can give this this orc here a bit of a poke. Or maybe I should do, I'll move here and give this orc a poke and relieve the stress and strain on my colleague, the dwarf. The dwarf seems to be getting a bit of a pummeling from these orcs. Maybe I need to give him a bit of extra hand. However, my spear jab has not been very effective. Maybe I should just not overthink things, and that's the trouble. Maybe the trouble with the elf, he overthinks. And then we move on to the wizard, and the wizard's still got quite a lot of spells left in his armory. So let's see if he can get into line of sight. So he gets a 7. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think he is going to have to come into the room. But he does have line of sight to this orc here. So let's have a look at the wizard's spells. And what about Fire of Wrath? This spell may be cast on any one monster or player anywhere on the board. Oh, right, so this can be done as well. It will seek out your enemy and inflict 1 body point of damage unless your opponent can roll a shield. Well, actually, that case, I might be better with... Okay, it'll inflict 1 body point of damage unless your opponent can roll a shield on 1 combat dice. Okay, so let's just do that then. So, Fire Wrath, he goes, right, I will incinerate you, foul monster. So that is the wrong type of shield. The monster needed to get a black shield. So it is incinerated. Oof. It goes up in incinerating smoke. The yellow tunicked orc goes, and we do get a chance to hear the wizard say something, some scholarly words, some profound utterances. So he's already done the amateurs bit. Let's do something a bit more fresh. Another cog in Morcar's ill-conceived machinations crumbles. Right, that's a bit long-winded, but we do get the point. That is the wizard's turn over. So we are left with our barbarian and our dwarf. So the barbarian needs to move to get into a combat situation. And he says, right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dodge round here behind this orc and give him a good thumping from the behind. Let me get my combat dice ready. 3 of them, and I'll give him a thwack. So yes, and he is only going to be able to defend with 2. He defends with 1, but it is not enough, so this orc is dead. And the barbarian yells, the barbarian adulates, the barbarian says, another one bites the dust. Anyone else want to try? Yeah. Okay. Well, not me, because I'm engaged. I'm now engaged with an elf and a dwarf, says this orc. So I think this orc, maybe its days are numbered, because the dwarf is really just staring him down. And he says, right, I'm going to do the coup de grace. I'm going to finish you off, and then we can get on with this. And that is 1. So the orc can defend with 2. Will it get a black shield? It does. This orc is really quite impressive. And he says, I'm not going to go down, just, easily. You're going to have to take me with all your efforts, your best. And the dwarf says, well, you certainly are showing some prowess, even for the despicable race. We are finished the adventurous turns. We are moving on to the Morcar turn. He has nothing. He can't take any skull tokens because he does have a monster on the board. But the orc can maybe do some remedial action against this dwarf and see if he can do a fighting retreat. Well, that's 2 skulls, and the dwarf's going to have to defend with 2. So he defends with 1, so that means the dwarf takes another point of damage. So, if we weren't coming towards the end of the adventure, you would say that, this is getting a bit more serious for the dwarf. But it looks as though we are coming towards the end. That is the orc's turn. And I think the orc, what he's going to do is maybe he could move in front of this door and see if he says, right, you're going to have to destroy me to get through here. And they're saying, well, what is in there that is so important? And he's going, I'm not telling. So we have a bit of an interplay with the reticent orc. We'll move back on to our elf, and is he going to give him a bit of I think he might try to use his sword this time and see if he can dispatch him. So he moves around, quite easily. He says, right, let me dispatch this creature, this foul creature, and return him to the nether regions. I get 1. Yes, surely that is enough. He's not going to defend, but he does. And he says, I will not die. I will not die at your hands. I need a worthy opponent. And they go, right, what is this orc on? Is he got some of steel underneath his hide? We've got the wizard, and the wizard says, well, do you want me to deal with him in a magical capacity? And they say, well, why not? You're going to have to get into line of sight. And he says, okay, well, I can just do that. I can move. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to go, Ball of Flame. This spell may be cast at any one monster or player. It will inflict 2 points of body damage. The victim may roll 2 dice. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. The Ball of Flame. Let's see if I can consume you in a ball of flame. I can't. That is, maybe it just goes fut. It does. It says I've run out of fire. It's maybe I've run out of some oil or whatever. I can't. And this amazing defending orc is managing to resist magic. It's managing to resist blows. It is doing quite a job. It's quite a sterling job for Ulag. Maybe it is his lieutenant. It's his right-hand man, right-hand orc. So that is the wizard's turnover. Luckily, we do have a couple of characters on hand that can maybe remedy the situation. Well, the barbarian needs to move to get, so he's going to get a minimum of 2. So we'll just do that's academic. So he moves to the side here, and he says, right, leave it to the professionals. Stand aside, wizard. Watch this, and he does 2 dice. So basically, the orc needs to defend on 2. There's no way. He did try. He did try it on. So he went down. He says that was a worthy foe. It really was quite. I hope his master is not as strong and powerful as this. So the barbarian, he gets to do his adulation as he finishes, and it is a 3. My blade sings your funeral dirge. Yes. I think we've maybe heard that one already, but it still is quite fresh. Okay, so that has done it. The barbarian has used up his turn. We got the dwarf, and he says, right, okay, We could try to search these. We haven't really done any searching apart from treasure in that room. We haven't searched it for traps, but maybe that's academic. We could do some searching in this room. However, I feel hungry to get through into this room and find out what is going on. I am going to see what my die roll is, and I will search the door for traps, and then I will open the door, and we say, yes, that is what to do. So he moves up and he uses 2 of his thing. We get an open door. Get my open door. Right. And according to my map, we get there is a table in this room's corner. It does not have it has a door over here, and inside is, yes, you guessed it, with the sword. It is no other than Ulag, the orc warlord. He is standing here, just to make sure that I've got him in the right place. And he has his own little sayings that I can use. I kind of call them Ulag's utterances. And let's just roll a D. We're going to have to do a D4 for this. So this is a new dice that I'm introducing to HeroQuest. And he says, 1, you dare step into my hall, weakling. I'll hang your skull with the others. Yes, well, we'll wait and see. Let us see what happens. So that is the dwarf's turn. I think he can still move in. And he says, right, well, I've listened to enough. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the rest of my movement. And I'm going to face you down, Ulag. And Ulag has got some characteristics that are a bit stronger than an orc. And he is attack with 4. He defends with 5. He moves 10 squares. His mind's 3 and his body is 1. So he's quite capable in defense because he defends with 5. So the dwarf attacks with 2. So let's see how the dwarf gets on with a straight on attack against Ulag. And he says, I must dispatch you. Well, that's 2. So that's probably quite a good start for the dwarf. So I get to roll 5 dice in defense, and I need 2 black shields. So I get 1. So I've got this. This could be important. This is the last chance of Ulag. Is he going to go down in a terrible way? And he does. The dwarf is successful. He dispatches Ulag with one mighty blow. Ulag is slain. He has gone. We have rid Prince Magnus of his nemesis, and Sir Ragnar's inflictor of Sir Ragnar's pain has been dispatched. I think that is definitely worth a dwarf grunt and grumble of high quality. So what does he say? He says, 5. Your skull will make a fine paperweight. Yes, that is suitably grotesque. He has dispatched Ulag. That is effectively almost the adventure over. I will say we'll do some tidying up. We do have the Morcar player, and the Morcar players as well. That was a bit deflating. I thought I'd get to play with with Ulag a bit. However, he maybe as his soul dissipates, one last thing that he could say, because I do have 4 other options. I thought he might have had a bit more interface with us. I am Ulag, a breaker of men. Your bones will feed my wolves. Well, that is not the case. I'm afraid you are gone, and you have been dispatched from this world. The Empire is rid of another scoundrel. Okay, so at least the Morcar player says, well, as a benefit, I do get a skull token, so I'll be academic about this and take it. We move back on to our characters, and they're really just going to do maybe a mopping up process. And so we're going to have our elf, and our elf says, okay, I'll pop in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've still got this door to check out, so let us do that. And what I can do is I can search for traps or treasure. So on a 1, I will search for treasure. I'm going to search for traps. So we search for traps, and there are no traps in this. And then we're going to move our wizard, and our wizard gets an 8. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He says, well, I'll tell you what, I will search for some treasure. And we say, don't do it, wizard. You could get a wandering monster, but it's too late. And it is a wandering monster. There is one last throw. You know, the wizard was going a bit. He's just, what is the wizard on in this adventure? He's really just being a bit kind of reckless. So we get a wandering monster, and it is maybe pops up guarding this door. I was hiding in the shadows. I saw my master slain. However, I have retribution for you. You will be destroyed. And it's 3 misses. So well, maybe not. So that was a bit of a wet blanket. Okay, but at least the wizard has a bit of opposition now. We're going to have to try to take this thing on. It's not going to be a slam dunk. So we're going to have our barbarian now. And you know, I can do maybe that as being fully searched, but I think I'll use this as a little pawn substitute, and we all just remember that's been fully searched. And we get a 3 for the barbarian. So the barbarian is a bit slow on the uptake, and he says, "Whoa, oh, I wasn't expecting another one of these creatures to pop up. Maybe I'm going to have to rely on that dwarf. He's going to take all the credit for this. You know, I could have got that." And so he's only got 4. So is he going to make it? 1, 2, 3. Yes, he does. So he is going to have to attack this orc from the side. I thought we'd finished with all these creatures, and I've missed. So after all that, so it becomes the Morcar player turn, and the Morcar player says, right, I'm going to see if I can inflict maximum pain on these you know, impetuous and impudent adventurers. I'm going to attack that wizard again, and he gets 1. And I think the wizard defends with 2. So let's see if he gets a shield. He doesn't. So the wizard is down by 1. He goes down to 3. So not a problem, because they've got lots of healing potions. So I don't think there are going to be any trouble at all in this game, unless they come across some very dangerous opposition, which, you know, I suppose is not really going to be the case now. So that was the end of the Morcar player turn. This orc can't do anything. It's backed up against this door. It is our turn. So we're going to have the elf, and the elf will, he can just move a minimum of 1, and he slides in here, and he says, right, I can use my little side poke, and he gets 1, and will this orc defend with? He does. The orcs are really quite capable in this game. They've been doing a great job. He manages to defend himself. So he says, well, who else is there? And I said, well, the barbarian says, well, I can't even get in. I can't even get into here. But what I will do is I will try to roll the dice and get quite close. I get 4, so 1, 2, 3. I'll just move here. I can't even get through. You know, we're all bunching in. And then I've got the dwarf, and what he's going to do is he's going to try to finish off this orc. And he gets 1. And will the orc defend? And it doesn't, so it expires. And I think we'll just do one final adulation from the dwarf and see what he got to say. And he does a 6. And the dwarf says, another beast sent back to the dark. Good riddance. Okay, well, that is very good. We had an attack, and he can move up to this door and with his dice. And that's 7. So he will open this door. And I will get an open door. I'm almost running out of open doors. So we've got an open door here. And before him, he sees, oh, look what I found. It is a chest, an unopened chest. It is waiting for us. However, I've used all my actions. I can't do anything else. I will just have to move up to it and stare at it with my avaricious eyes of being a dwarf. So that is his turn over. we are onto the Morcar player, and he says, the Morcar player says, right, I don't have any monsters, however, I can get another skull for what it's worth. We do have our next player, which is the elf. The elf says, okay, let me at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and he says, right, will I search, will I go against this? I should really search for traps first, unless I get a 1. He doesn't. So he gets a 1, and as he is searching for traps, he sees that the treasure chest contains a trap. So anyone who opens the chest without searching for traps will lose 1 body point. However, the chest will contain 100 gold. So I would say that the elf is in the position of getting 100 gold if one of the other characters doesn't search for treasure. Let's find out. And even then, I think what I'll do is I'll do a kind of die roll to see whether the elf manages, as he is searching for traps, to actually cotton on to the fact that the treasure chest has got this money in it too. So our next character will be the barbarian. Oh no, it's going to be the wizard, and the wizard only gets 4. So 1, 2, 3. He can't get through, so he's going to stand here. And I'm going to say you've got to be next to this chest to have any ability. So 7. So I think that might be enough. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. So the barbarian, he is going to search for treasure. And he said, yes, I have found it. 100 gold. Well done, elf, for getting rid of the locks on this. Maybe what we'll do, we can divide the spoils between us. I think that will be the case. Okay, well, I think that's basically the game over, because that is the end of the overall dungeon. I'm not going to retrace all my character steps to get out. They're not going to do any more searching, I would say. This is what we used to do when we'd finish a session when we were playing as a family. If we got to the end of the game, we never really, unless there was something like Sir Ragnar and you had to get out or whatever, or there were monsters running around, we didn't really trace all our steps and get out, and that's going to be a bit poor to watch. I'm going to say that the characters have achieved their objective. They take away their spoils. We're going to start with a bit of downtime in the next episode, and then I think the one after this is the next adventure is called Prince Magnus's Gold. So that'll be our third adventure in this campaign, and if the characters do survive that as a unit, all 3 of them will become champions, which is a good thing. Okay, well, I enjoyed that. Hopefully you did too, and it wasn't too much die rolling and whatever, just without any real action. I think there was quite a bit of action in that one, and you might have seen slightly one-sided, but there was a fair bit of opposition. A few things could have gone against the characters, but they seem to have luck more or less in their side. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.